Hello and welcome back to Fourth and a Mile. I am your host Tristan, and we are going to talk about some bullshit today. Um, if you missed last episode, the first episode, the debut episode, we talk about football here, mainly NFL and NCAA. When it picks up, we'll start talking about that as well. But to start today's episode, I would like to recap some of the free agency moves that I missed last week or that hadn't happened. Well, last week, the last couple of weeks, I've been pretty inconsistent for trying to record and upload. Not a real good start, but there's always things you can work on. So Harrison Bryant was a tight end from the Las Vegas Raiders that we had signed. I gotta be honest, I have not watched a lot of his game. But what that tells me, adding tight end depth and the and Dallas Goedert being included in the goodbye video, really tells me that Dallas probably is not going to be back this season or next season. I mean, which fucking sucks because I really like Dallas Goedert. He's one of my favorite players on the team. But it is what it is. You can't have elite weapons like you can't pay Devontae Smith and AJ Brown and Jalen and Saquon without having to cut somebody out. And unfortunately, it looks like that's going to be Dallas. And last week I also, well, last week, I keep saying last week, last episode, I also forgot to include that Kenny Pickett was traded to the Cleveland Browns. So the Cleveland Browns got themselves a Super Bowl winning quarterback, technically, and we got ourselves a very athletic backup, which never hurts to have athleticism in your quarterback room. Um, let's see here. Oh, Isaiah Rodgers. I forgot to bring him up too. I guess I don't remember where he went, but I know he's not with the Eagles anymore. So, that facilitates the need for a corner to be drafted or a safety or somebody that can fill in and play where Isaiah played. That leads kind of into our next subject here, the draft and what I think the Eagles should do. Um, Not listen to me. Don't listen to me, first of all, Howie. Like, if you're somehow managing listening to this, you're doing a fine, spectacular job. Don't listen to my opinions, unless that's what you already thought, and then give me a shout out on any your preferred social media. So looking at the team, I think we're pretty solid at O line. Even with Becton leaving, we've Kendall Lamb. I think he played on the Dolphins last season. He started like 7 games for him. We signed him, so I think that'll be a nice rotational piece for us. Not gonna say he's gonna take the place of Becton, but I have a feeling Jeff Stoutland is a good enough coach that you can give him pretty much any offensive line prospect, and he's gonna turn him into not maybe not a Pro Bowler, but a very well disciplined, a very fundamentally sound offensive lineman. They call it Stoutland U for a reason. Um, Defensive line, I don't know as though we necessarily need to draft a defensive lineman. There are a couple nice guys uh in free agency still. Um, I don't really know as though I want us to spend our first round pick on a defensive lineman. Not saying that they can't, but I would prefer to see that spent in the secondary, being that's where we've lost a lot. I mean, we've lost a lot on the defensive line too, but it's just having good corners makes everything easier on defense. Having good safeties makes everything easier on defense. I mean, you can't cover the receivers that they're sending downfield, the worst team will beat you. I mean, it's simple as that. Not you need pressure, you do. You need the pressure, you be able to need to hold the line, but it's one of those things where I would rather have good corners than a good defensive line, personally. Let's see. To address the top 5 picks, we got Tennessee, we got Cleveland, we got the Giants, we got New England, and then we got the Jags. So obviously, like everyone's taken Cam Ward to be number one, which I can't say that I disagree with because I mean he's a unit. Um, Cleveland is where things are getting tricky because they signed um or they let Jameis go. Sorry, I misspoke. And um I mean they have Deshaun Watson. I feel like I'm forgetting they signed a quarterback. Let me Google that real quick to make sure I'm not just making stuff up here. Um but I see a lot of projected picks like the Abdul Carter out of Penn State, which I got Miles Garrett. Not saying that you can't use another defensive end on the other side, but it just seems as though they're not interested in helping Garrett. I mean, yeah, they paid him, but like they it took him forever. Um, I see that they're discussing whether or not they need to trade for Dak Prescott, which please don't, because I really enjoy him being on the Cowboys. That's a nice two free victories a year for us. I mean, you can't hate that. But looking along here, we got the Giants at number three. If they don't trade out of it, which I've seen a couple things that they might trade out of it, they were gonna have not have to, but I mean they were gonna be looking heavily into a quarterback if Russell Wilson hadn't signed there recent like last night, I think, as of this recording. Um, yeah, I I mean it's kind of pretty cut and dry. I mean I don't really consider Travis Hunter to be like a two-way player. He wants to play 120 snaps a game. I saw him say that somewhere, and I just don't think he realizes that this is the men's league. It's it's not for kids. I mean, the reason you're playing 120 snaps per game in college is A, because it's college. B, you're playing against inferior competition every single week physically. And C, your coach is all about getting you attention. Like when you get to the NFL, I'm not saying that you're going to completely fall off attention wise, but you're no longer going to be the belle of the ball when you're on the Giants. Like you have dudes that have been there for not there, but maybe in the NFL for 10 years, and you're going to come in and start demanding that you start both sides of the ball or play both sides of the ball. I just don't see that working out. And it his attitude, I mean, he's a nice guy. He's humble, whatever. I don't really know. I not it's not that I don't really know. It's just I don't really care to watch any of his interviews. I've already kind of made up my mind on him already. I watched him play at Colorado. I watched him get thumped by Nebraska. I watched him give up on his team. I watched Shador give up on his team when the chips were down. Everyone was looking at them being like, "Hey, you're our leaders. Hey, you're the guys. You're him and you're supposed to be them." And when your quarterback is calling out your offensive lineman after a game and being like, well, how many times did Riola get touched? No, it's not about how many times did Riola get touched. Yeah, this got nothing to do with you, okay? It's got nothing to do with your offensive line. It's got nothing to do with your offense, okay? You don't worry about how many times Riola got touched. You worry about what the fuck you need to do to actually be productive on offense. It's not about you, okay? You were the one eating the sacks. You were the one not throwing the ball away. You were the one throwing picks from the 5 yard line. So how many times did Ryota get touched? Doesn't matter. That does not matter. Okay? That's my piece on Sanders until we get into, well, I might just skip that next part because I already said my piece. So, with the fifth pick, we got New England. New England just signed Stephon Diggs, so they have no need for a number one receiver. I mean, he is coming off the ACL tear. I think it was an ACL if I'm remembering correctly. Um, So I guess I'm not sure what his timeline to be back is, like back, fully, wide receiver one on the depth chart back. But that's not a bad wide receiver one to have, in my opinion. Like, yeah, he might have some attitude issues, but Drake may need somebody to throw to. Like he's got nobody. I mean, that's and honestly, if I were the Patriots, would get I would maybe see if the Giants would swap picks with you. That way you can get Travis Hunter and you can put him at receiver because I think Travis can be a good receiver. I just don't think he's going to be good playing both ways of the ball. So you give Drake a nice seasoned receiver on the outside and a nice young malleable receiver that has not been refined so that Stephon can impress upon him the little route techniques and all the things that Stephon knows. You get him synced up with Drake May. I think New England has a shot. Maybe I don't know about playoffs. I don't know about playoffs this season, but they're definitely not going to be picking fourth next year. I don't think they will. Then number five, we have the Jags, and the Jags. I mean, they can kind of do really whatever. I mean, let me think about this before I can get in trouble in Jacksonville. I mean, you have Trevor Lawrence, okay. You have Brian Thomas Jr., okay. You have Travis Etienne, okay. Defense. I was forgetting a whole 11 other starters on the other side. Yeah, you guys might need help on defense. I don't know. I didn't watch a lot of Jaguars games, but you end up losing the game because your defense gives up too many points. So That's what I would go. I mean, maybe if Carter, if Abdul Carter's still available, I'm seeing a lot of Mason Graham, although he kind of, I didn't really watch his combine, I guess, but I've seen that he's kind of been dropping in people's opinions. So maybe he didn't have that great of a combine, but I don't know. Jacksonville, you are an enigma. I mean, you're consistently the worst team with the most upside, it seems. Like Cleveland's just a bad team with no hope. Okay. The Browns fans are used to it. Cleveland's used to it. As a city, the Cavs are like, okay, yeah, we have to carry because the Browns aren't going to do a fucking thing. And they haven't for the past 40 fucking years. Okay, you go down to Jacksonville, you got Trevor Lawrence, you got Brian Thomas Jr. They let Evan Ingram go. I can't remember where he signed with, but I know that they did not re-sign him and he went somewhere else. You have ETN in the backfield. I mean, you have the offense. You have the pieces. It's just you hire piece of shit head coaches, it seems, or you hire inept head coaches, or you hire offensive coordinators that don't know what the fuck they're doing on offense, or you hire a defensive coordinator that gives up 35 a game, and no matter how good your offense is, no matter how many dimes Trevor Lawrence drops to Brian Thomas Jr., you're still gonna lose by at least double digits because your defense can't stop a fucking leak. Ah, man, Jacksonville, I'm not frustrated. It's just I get okay, I am frustrated. I get frustrated at the things I don't understand. And I don't understand the Jaguars. I don't get Shad Khan. I don't get his mustache. I don't get their mascot. The one thing that I understand about the Jags is the pool in the stadium. And that is it. Because that's cool as fuck. But moving on, I'm not really gonna give any of my opinions on the like whole entire first round. I think the Eagles need to go corner safety or defensive line. Um, yeah, and that's pretty much it. I think unless we trade up, we're picking at pick 32. So we're gonna not necessarily the pick of the litter, but I mean we'll have options for sure. People always fall, people always slide. Nobody thought that Jalen Carter was gonna fall to us, and look at how that happens. Oh boy. But panning over to just some story that I found entertaining, and infuriating and interesting. So Mark Gastineau, I think he's the all-time sack leader for the Jets still, so nobody's broken that record. But broken records are why this happened. So Mark Gastineau, he held the record for the most sacks in a season by by a defender, obviously, because offensive players can't get sacks. But he held the record for a while, and on one fateful day, Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers, I about said Green Bay Giants. Oh my God, I'm cooked. Green Bay Packers were playing the New York Giants, and uh, it was the last game of the season, I think. And Michael Strahan was one sack away from breaking the sack record. So on a play, Brett Favre took the snap, and he, in my humble opinion, it looked like when he was dropping back, he kind of stumbled and wasn't able to recover before he saw Michael Strahan bearing down on him. And at that point, you just kind of give up because you might end up getting hurt. You're gonna end up fighting. You're gonna end up you know twisting your body. You're gonna do something more trying to get away from Michael Strahan than if you were to just give up and not just be like, all right, bro, don't touch me, don't hurt me, just have the sack. So Mark Gastineau, not a fan of this. Record's broken. That game was like over 20 years ago, mind you. There's a clip of him for one of their 30 to 3430 documentaries. It's like the New York Sack Exchange or something like that. I have not watched it, and I don't really care to after this whole debacle. Um, so Mark Gastineau went up to Brett Favre when Brett Favre was signing autographs, I believe, for some fans, and confronted him about this whole deal 20 years after the fact, saying that, you took a fall and, you hurt me and this and that. And then, so Brett is confused, obviously, because he's like, who are you? I think he ended up recognizing him by the end of the interaction, but during it, he was just like, well, are you gonna hurt me or whatever? Like, I'm gonna. They were just basically just talking shit like you would on a football field, kind of like without the physicality of it, I guess. And so now Gastineau is suing ESPN for that clip that they included in the 30 for 30 documentary because they didn't show ESPN did not show the clip of him and Favre shaking hands after Gastineau goes up and basically accosts Favre at his own autograph signing event. And man, let it go. Let it go. You were cool at one point in time in the 80s or the 90s or whatever you played. Let it go. It was 20 years ago. Who cares? Michael Strahan owns the sack record. It is what it is. Like, I guess you could say it's up for interpretation. Like, oh, he could have recovered. He could have tried harder. That's sure. I mean, he could have, but like I said, he's you play a children's game for several $1 million a season. You should probably be careful with your body and how you like try to not break it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just give up to end up winning more. It's I don't know. I don't agree with why Mr. Gastineau is mad. But then again, I've never been in the NFL and I've never held a sack record, so I really can't relate to the pain of having that ripped away from me. So maybe I'm an idiot. That's the whole thing. Is I'm an idiot. Is no maybes about it. Um, one thing real quick. I know I mentioned it earlier. Russell Wilson signed with the New York Giants. Now, I am thrilled and I am upset, and I will explain why. I am thrilled because Russell Wilson is a bad quarterback. Okay, he's not good. You can say that, oh well, the Steelers aren't a good team. Oh, the Steelers this. Oh, the Steelers that. Okay, yeah, the Steelers are a mid team, sure, but when good players go to mid teams, they make the team better. Okay, that did not happen. It did not. It Russell Wilson was just good enough to make sure that Mike Tomlin's losing season streak is still alive. Like that he's never coached a losing season or has coached like, 15, 16 seasons straight of non-losing seasons. Um yeah, that's barely how good Russell Wilson was. Like he was barely good enough to get 9 wins or to get 8 wins or whatever the thing is with the extended schedule now. So I'm super hyped that the Giants have managed to fumble their quarterback again and will be fucking around for at least the next 3 years trying to get their shit figured out. So that's great. Always love to see it. Why I hate it is the Giants also signed Jameis Winston, and I'm a huge Jameis Winston fan. So I really wanted to see Jameis start, not for the fact that he's a good quarterback, but just because I love Jameis. I want to see him do things. I love seeing that man on camera. He is comedy every time that he steps into anywhere. Um, but now I guess that does mean I don't really have to feel bad when we're thumping them, 35-7, because Jameis is on the bench just thinking about crab legs or talking about Bible verses and leading them into battle or some shit. Or he might be in the game. We'll get, oh, this is perfect prime Jameis. This might not be as bad as I thought. We'll get garbage time Jameis Winston, where none of the decisions that he makes actually have a consequence on the game, so he can just go out there and sling that fucker. I'm so hyped for this. Oh man, I might watch some Giants games outside of when they play the Eagles. Um, but so since Wilson and Winston are now Giants, that leaves one quarterback and one not one team, but one quarterback and one suitor. That's Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would be surprised if Rodgers doesn't sign with the Steelers within the next week or so, but I have been hearing rumblings, seeing rumblings that he might be trying to go to Minnesota. But uh if I were Minnesota, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because you have JJ McCarthy. You just got rid of Sam Darnold. JJ, he got hurt last year, so he couldn't, obviously like physically participate, but like he got mental reps from Sam Darnold. He's got KOC, who's like the modern day quarterback whisperer. He takes bad quarterbacks and makes them mediocre, and takes mediocre quarterbacks and makes them pretty decent. Um, So if I were Minnesota, I'd stay away from Rodgers. It just he doesn't fit the vibe. He doesn't fit the culture. Like when you think of Minnesota quarterbacks, you think of like Kirk Cousins, like the smiley guy that's always happy to do this and do that, and for the fan base and take pictures and all that. Not saying Rodgers doesn't ever like humanize himself and take pictures or sign autographs with fans, but like there's the Kirk attitude and then there's the Aaron attitude of how to approach a new team. And the Aaron attitude is not, I don't think, beneficial for building chemistry with new teammates. So I guess Pittsburgh Pittsburgh's more of a fit in my opinion anyway, because Pittsburgh is more of a hard-nosed town in my opinion. and they don't necessarily demand greatness, but they respect greatness. And Aaron Rodgers has been nothing short of great, but his entire career, minus the past couple of seasons. Because we got to remember, this Aaron Rodgers is the same quarterback that threw like 49 touchdowns to like 7 picks in one season. Okay, and this is for the Packers. Like, obviously, he's not prime Rodgers anymore, but like your mind doesn't necessarily slow down just because your body does. You know what I mean? Like he can still make the reads just because he can't make the throw. Like just make the route 10 yards shorter and you have the read. I mean, sometimes that won't work with certain scheme concepts, but I mean that is what it is. But with that being said, I think I am done rambling. So I appreciate everyone who stayed to listen. I know we're not very organized yet. We're not very consistent with the upload schedule yet. I do apologize about that. But um, this podcast is something that's new, entirely new to me. I have never done any sort of media. I mean, I uploaded some random YouTube videos when I was like 14 or 15, but that doesn't count. Um, that's not like super serious media. Not that I won't look back on this in 5 years and be like, "Ooh, why did I do that?" But I don't know. I just don't know how to articulate properly that I really do appreciate you staying through my stumblings, my mispronunciations, my pauses while I'm trying to find the correct word. Um, and obviously my terrible opinions. So appreciate that, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.